No, I figured in this new world, that's what everybody's doing. Everybody says, "Hey, let's get together," and they mean this shit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I tend to do FaceTime instead.
Yeah.
Because I know it.
Yeah, me too. Um, I guess I'll start there. What have you been up to? I mean, I was looking at your website last night, and it says Jake is on perpetual tour. And I thought, no, he's not. It's God, it sucks, eh?
Sometimes it's a state of mind, you know? Like,
Yeah. So how you been filling the time?
I've been extremely busy.
Really?
Yeah, not with any work, unfortunately. No, we were really, I guess in some ways timing really worked out. I was planning on being on tour most of this year. And in February, we brought a new little girl into the world.
Oh, wow, congratulations. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You must be so excited.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Good for you, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, wow. So we got our hands completely full.
You're busy.
Exactly. Yeah, right at the time that there's like 6-week period that you don't take your kid outside, just like keep hibernating. And as soon as that ended, the quarantine started. So we kind of just carried it over. And as much as I miss working and traveling and being on that perpetual tour, it's been nice to just like spend some time with my family and this new little gift.
That's fantastic. How's that feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? Like, how much has your life changed now that you're dad?
Well, actually, I've been a dad for a while.
Well, have you? I didn't know that.
Yeah. This is my third child. So
oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, my first daughter is 12. She just turned 12 in April. Okay. And then my son is 2. And then we have this new addition.
I'm the new arrival.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not new, but what must be new is staying home with the kids. That's got to
be. Normally I go on tour, I work hard, I have, I enjoy myself on the road. And then when I come home, I tend to just like really focus on my family and pour myself into that. So kind of cut out all my other distractions. But it's like, that's for like a month or like, maybe 3 months. This has been a whole nother level of like, that 3 months didn't end.
Yeah. What's interesting to me too is when you and I spoke, I don't know if you remember, we had a conversation at an empty club about a year ago, I think. Real nice chat. And one of the things that I told everybody how much I enjoyed your company and was looking forward to seeing you live. And then, the apocalypse arrived and that was the end of that. And one of the things that I noticed last night in, it's just sort of talking, the way I do, I think the night before about how I want a conversation to go. You're a fairly private guy. There's not a lot of information out on you, and that I wanted to know that's deliberate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't mind talking about stuff. I'm a pretty open book, generally speaking, but in terms of like displaying it, it's I don't know, I feel like social media is such a dangerous thing anyway, and I just hate pouring into that and just adding to the noise and the illusions. If we have a chance to get to know each other, great. I'm all, but I don't want to create a falsehood of that. And I guess that's the
that's why I didn't know you were a dad, because you're a pretty private person, which I respect a great deal, and I do not want to infringe on at all. But that's a high wire act, being a public figure and trying to keep things behind the fence, which, like I said,
it's tricky on occasion. I mean, people tend to take whatever you feed them, So I think that if I posted more things about my family, then people would be a lot more curious about my family. Like I said, I don't mind talking about stuff.
Yeah.
I'm happy to, I love my family. I'm proud of my kids, and they're beautiful, and I love being a dad. But yeah, I feel like there's not as much hunger for that because I don't post that stuff.
Is there a lot of music on in the house? Are the kids surrounded by music? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very varied. Like I said, I have a 12-year-old daughter, so
Yeah.
There's been lots of Billie Eilish and Ariana Grande going on in the house.
You get a pop music education.
Yeah, we've had lots of conversations about how important it is to have a varied diet. So, I'll have to say, I was very proud. I came in the house the other day after being out for a walk. I came in the house and she was playing Hunky Dory by David Bowie. I was happy to see that.
Okay, all right. Would that be subliminal music education from Dad? Yeah. I thought it might be. Does she play an instrument, Jay?
She had piano lessons for a little while. She's taken ukulele lessons, and now she's not. But she's a visual artist. That's kind of her thing.
Oh wow, cool! Creativity in the house. I have to ask you. You obviously played on Bruce's new record. Was that during COVID, or was those sessions were at the end of last year? How did that work?
Yeah, it was in November, and we had it on the books for a while. So we actually came in, and he said a week. None of us, I don't know. I didn't anticipate that it was going to be just a week, but pretty powerful moment.
Yeah, it's a very cool. I've seen him talk about it, and you can hear it live off the floor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, there's a buzz about that, isn't there? When you're all playing at the same time and it's going down on tape, it must be such a rush, and at the same time it must be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, well, there's all sorts of challenges, I guess, depending on which perspective you're coming from. For me, it was my first time recording in that kind of a role with E Street, and their first time doing that in a long time. So I recorded on High Hopes, but it was a very, very different setting, and we had other horn players and stuff. So this is like a E Street rock and roll album. So walking into that in itself was a game with a certain level of intensity about it, and then to walk in and find that the whole thing was being highly documented. So there's cameras at every single angle. It's just kind of like, oh man, all right. I guess I would have dressed differently.
Somebody should have told me.
Yeah, I just didn't expect that level of intensity with
and I guess longer than a week.
Well, yeah, I anticipated longer than a week. Yeah, for sure.
Well, what's that? What is it like? I know you've worked with so many different artists over the course of the years. So one of the things I do know, talked about, you working with Eddie Vedder and so many other people, Morello and these other folks. As a player, do you have to adjust? Is it a different mindset when you're headed to New Jersey to make a new record with Bruce, or you're headed to do a gig with somebody else? Do you have to sort of rearrange the thinking process?
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely going into different projects, and I mean, there's been plenty of times where I didn't know what to expect, so you kind of have to come in just available, and adapt to the moment. But it's always a learning process, I think about when I was younger, 20 years ago when I first started recording. I don't know. I used to try to just be as vulnerable as possible, so I'd strip down to almost naked in the studio to record. I don't do that anymore. I figured out how to get it. But yes, this is all this, adapting, I guess. The setting makes a big difference too. When I recorded with Eddie Vedder, we were in this I think it was an old church, and it was you could see where the pulpit would have been, and you're standing in where the pews would have been to track, and sometimes you're in like a dungeon in Manhattan, so it's always a different dynamic, and that tells a lot of the story of what's going to come out and what the mood is going to be.
Yeah, it must change the vibe, eh? Like I would imagine an old church must really change the vibe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When because the Bruce record is so new, how does the process work? Do you know what the songs are going to be before you get down there, or do you get to hear demos, or do you just go and then you take off from the time you get down there?
In this situation, he had written those songs pretty quickly. I mean, in the course of a week, I believe, and he didn't demo them. So,
wow,
yeah, that was a different situation.
So you get there, and then it's like, okay, we're gonna figure out what the part is.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Are you jealous of a guy who just throws songs together like that quickly? Does that make you jealous as a songwriter?
I don't think so. I don't know. For me, that's a really natural way to approach things. That's one of the ways that I really connect to Bruce's process. It's just about like digesting your life and your world, and being able to like return what you've taken in and put it back out into the universe. It's I don't know. All that to say, like I function in a very similar way.
There, gotcha. I wanted last night. The other thing I was doing was listening to your music, and I listened to Democracy a couple of times because, good Christ, is it suddenly very, very au courant, as they say here in Quebec. It's really quite something. When you watch what's transpiring down in the States, does that move you creatively, or does it just bother you emotionally?
Both, for sure. I've definitely found myself listening back to that record and like having, I had no clue that it was going to become more relevant over the course of the next year.
Boy, has it ever.
Yeah, and it's been very intense. I've certainly written a good bit in the last several months, just considering where things are. My writing process has changed greatly over the last 7 months.
How so? How so?
Well, no, largely because I'm changing diapers most of the time.
Of course. Right, of course, yeah.
Yeah. But there's definitely been enough, emotional need to exercise, that voice, and there's definitely been some heavy writing coming out of that. All that said, I don't intend on recording anything right now because the record that I put out last year still seems to speak very loudly and really direct to where we are.
You must be excited to get back out and play that record for people. Where do you think we're going live music wise?
Man, I have no idea. I hope that it gets sorted out in the next year. I know a lot of people have been doing a lot of streaming shows.
Yeah.
And that's been great for a lot of people. I haven't been doing those for 2 seasons.
Not really the same though, eh?
That's the thing. It's mind you, there's a lot of performers that are able to. They go on stage and it's a moment of art. So they're displaying their art, and that's what they're kind of used to. They're not really looking for the response from the crowd as much. For me, when I go to perform, it's a communal experience, and I need that connection with the audience to tell a story. We're constructing that to be. We've been working on a new concept to be able to have a very immediate interactive experience with an audience virtually, and I hope to share more about that soon. But it's exciting. Yeah. But nothing's going to replace being in front of a live audience.
No. I mean, as a performer, it's like oxygen, right? The crowd's like oxygen.
Yeah, for sure. But there's also like like for me, there's, you have to consider, I went to the school of the University of E Street, right? So like for me, there's this whole navigational thing that happens with the audience. It's I make a set list every night, just like Bruce does, and but it's up to the audience to help me to navigate that evening. And the story that I walked to the table with, it may have a theme, but the direction that we go may be very different. So that's important to me. That's important to have that live aspect of storytelling in that evening. So for me, like the whole just playing a virtual show just doesn't work for me.
On a given night, let's just talk about playing live, because I miss it. I miss it's going to shows. If you're on Facebook, they keep sending you these memories. And in the last couple of days, I've been getting, I was at the McCartney show, and they keep sending me these things from 2-3 years ago where I'm like, I really miss live music. So when you start with a set list and you go out, can the audience change the path that you travel that night?
Full on.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I try to have conversations with people in the town that I'm playing before the show, just because it helps me to understand, what's going on in that community, to build a narrative. But once you're in the room, you're having a conversation with one audience that's made out of, however many different people. So without question, sometimes I'll set this, and as soon as we hit the stage, it's like, no, we're starting here. There used to be wagers going on with my bands, whether we start with the same song or how many songs on the set list will actually play.
You have to have good players with you, right? You turn around and say, no, we're going this way. You have to have really good players with you.
Yeah, and who understand that mission that you're on, that it's going to be a journey, and that's what keeps it live and fresh.
Yeah,
and
that's
human.
You said maybe you were going to come up with a concept. Are you talking pre-Christmas or post-Christmas? Something in the new year?
In terms of my solo stuff, it'll be post-Christmas for sure.
Yeah. When you write, because you play so many different instruments, you're on the sax. I know you play. You even play drums, I think, don't you?
Yeah.
Is there anything you don't play?
Yeah, for sure. There's Irish instruments I have a really hard time with.
Okay.
But, I try to get my hands on things and see how it goes, and if there's a connection there, I just kind of build on it.
So when you write, where do you usually start on a piano or a guitar, or?
That all depends. It all varies. I would say in terms of instrumentation, it's probably 50-50, between guitar and piano. But there's often times where I don't have an instrument at all. I'll just be out for a walk, and then a song hits me. So then I just have to remember it, sing it into my phone, and then go learn it.
So, a melody will hit you.
Sometimes it's a whole song. It's
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes it's lyrics, it's the melody, like the whole thing. I hear the whole thing, and then I literally have to go back to an instrument to learn that song.
Yeah, right. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah. It's. I'm grateful. I'm very grateful for that. It doesn't happen every time, but on the most recent record, like "Eyes on the Horizon" is an example of that. I just woke up one morning and heard the song, the whole thing.
Do you think that can be? I'm of the opinion I don't think that can be taught. I think that's kind of like a thing that shoots into certain people. Maybe because you're surrounded by music like you have been for most of your life. Yeah. But sometimes I'll see learn songwriting in online. and I'll think, I don't think that's something that's teachable. Do you?
Well, I mean, like songwriting in itself, it's as teachable as like literature, you know. But inspired writing is a different thing, I think. There is something that's just different. I mean, there's been songs that I sat down to write as well, you know.
Sure.
Where I had my head and I pieced it together. But the ones that are inspired in that moment, for me, it almost feels like cheating to say I wrote it, you know, because it was a gift. It was you know, just was just given to me, and I was the first to hear it, you know.
Came from somewhere. I've got such admiration. You know, you hear all the stories, you know, like about McCartney saying he dreamed yesterday, and you know, you hear all kinds of stories about people with, you know, a riff pops into their head, or they've got a notepad next to their bed in the old days, and it does really sounds like a gift from somewhere, who knows where.
Yeah, I think it's important just to be open.
Yeah. To accept.
And I think that's something that we can all do.
Yeah.
You know, some people practice creativity in the sense of just like having a train of thought, and then just write words, you know, just to get their brain to be engaged that way.
As a musician, Jake, do you notice producers? Do you notice sounds? I mean, obviously you notice sounds, but I mean, is that part of it important to you? You know, like you listen to, there are a lot of producers put such a stamp on a record, like Mutt Lange or Mac, or, you know, people that, you know, Don Was, people that have this sort of sound. And I was wondering, as a musician, is that important to you? Do you think when you're, you know, starting to think about a song, you think, oh, I'd like to bring this kind of sound to it, or is that a personal thing you want to keep in your camp?
I never thought about that until we started tracking for Fear and Love. It's not something that ever crossed my mind. I didn't even really listen for production specifically until then. And since then, it's kind of like, you know, like once you're aware of it, you can't go back, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if that's helpful or not for my process, but you know, because there's something to be said about like just the rawness of a creative moment and capturing it. You know, I was having a conversation with a producer friend of mine just a few days ago here in Montreal, actually. Howard Billerman, he's a genius, love the guy.
Yeah.
Because I was working on a new song that I recorded onto my iPhone, and I loved the delivery, and it was just like going back to try and track it again, and you just don't capture the moment the same way. And like, how do you go back to find that moment? He had some really good input, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I kind of went on a tangent there, but the production creates a certain sound, and I don't know. I think maybe it's a question for you, really, because it's like, what will people play?
I've had this conversation with so many musicians over the years. A lot of guys believe, you know, that was a great song, but we had the wrong guy who didn't make the right movie about that song. You know what I mean? But I've also been in studios and watched a guy do drum sounds for 2 days. Yeah. And to me, that just sucks all the creativity and all of the spontaneity out of the magic that I think is music.
Yeah. I mean, all that said, I don't know. Again, like I think it's one question for you, because it's like I think about in terms of like once you start questioning, once you start asking the question of like what's going to get this song on the radio, it immediately shifts the entire direction, you know. And for me, like it's like that's not a great moment.
No.
But there's also a thing of like what's the sound of today? You know, like what's the trend of today in terms of the production? You know,
right.
There's certain layers and patches that people will put in to records because that's what's happening today. It's like that's the trend. And I don't know if that's important or not.
Yeah.
But
neither do I. It's a question that I've never been able to answer. I mean, I've known, a few Canadian bands that have said, geez, I wish I could get a hold of my masters. I'd love to redo them and have a kick at the can because we didn't like the production. And they think that that was part of what was missing on an album that didn't go. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm fascinated by the question itself, I guess.
Yeah. But for me, like, that's the thing is like the answer to that question is, or the question in itself, I think is maybe even, it's a business question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Being true to the art, then the way you create in that moment is honest and beautiful.
They told me that you were going to play something for us. Is that true?
Yeah, I found out yesterday.
Okay, as long as you're cool with it, I'm not. If you want to do something, I think people would love to see you do something. I know I would. Cool. If you don't mind an audience of one clapping when you're done, that'll be me.
That's a fair point. This will be my first time performing this year.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, for an audience, for a virtual audience.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. What do you got there? It looks like you got a guitar. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I consider the piano, but when I was in that room, my daughter was screaming. So.
Okay. What are you gonna play, Jake?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about like this moment, and again, like just going back to the record with Eyes on the Horizon, there's a lot of things that I thought would be appropriate. If I'm solo on a guitar, and considering the message, I think that the title track is maybe the best thing to do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's a song just about recognizing where we are and the struggles and the difficulties that we're in, and realizing that like we have to keep our focus, our gaze on where we want to be, and who we want to be, and that's the only way that we're gonna get there. So in a time like right now, where it truly feels like the apocalypse, if we want tomorrow, we have to look to it and strive for it. Yeah. So.
Okay, the floor is yours. I can't wait. Thank you, Jake.
Keep your eyes on the horizon. There's a safe place we can grow. I'll be tired of all this fight. Don't look back, you gotta let it go. Lie, 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 lie. Ooh, ooh, lie, 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 lie. Ooh, ooh. There's a light inside the darkness that you know. Maybe one day you'll learn how to let it shine. Ooh. Keep your head up, 'cause if you don't, you'll never see the power that exists inside your heart and mind. Ooh. Choice is all you have to make. Now, keep your eyes on the horizon. There's a safe place that can grow. I'm tired of all this fight. So on the back, you gotta let it go. Lie, 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 lie. Ooh, ooh. Lie, 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 lie. Ooh, ooh. Peace of mind is not as simple as it looks. It starts with the choice you made deep inside. Ooh. So you take off, but the precious baby left. There's a way for you, but first you gotta fly. Ooh, one choice is all you got to make. Now, keep your eyes on the ground. There's a safe place to go. I'm tired of those smiles. So look back, you gotta let one choice is all you've got to make now.
Stupidest sound ever of one guy clapping. It's really, really beautiful. And you're so right about how it's so relevant now. It's so relevant. That song came to you like that?
Yeah. Just woke up in the morning and there it was.
Wow, it's such a beautiful melody and it's such a powerful lyric. We had it wasn't the greatest audio quality, I guess, because of what, probably because of Bloody Zoom, but the message is really, really powerful. How does that feel to play?
Honestly, it's one of those songs where every time I play it, it's just a great reminder, even for me,
Really, eh?
Yeah, it's hard, man. The world right now is in a weird place, and like life it has its challenges. It's hard at times, anyway. But given where we are today, I was talking to my 12-year-old yesterday about I'm kind of heartbroken that she's never known the United States that I grew up in, and it certainly wasn't perfect. It certainly had its problems, but there was an understanding of community, and at the end of the day, the core of being united as a people, and that everyone brings value, and the divisions that we see now are just they're insane. I can't imagine being 12 years old right now and growing up with football politics, where it's root for your team at any cost. So for me, it's a great reminder of where we've come from. For me, as when I was a kid, and a reminder to keep looking to who I want to be as a person and who we should be as people.
It's really uplifting, especially for me. I was talking to a buddy of mine 2 nights ago that lives in North Carolina, and I was saying to him, I believe in America's better angels. I don't know if I'm being naive, but I like to think that if there's a change in the Oval Office, that things will calm down a little bit, and I don't know if we're going back to whatever normal is, but I've said this before on the radio many, many times. Americans, well, you know this because you live here now. Americans are just like us. We're neighbors. We're friends. We're the same folks. But the toxic soup that's gone on in the last 4 or 5 years has been unbelievably ugly, and it's nice to hear something optimistic.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Keep your eyes on it.
The more you travel, the more you realize that we're all the same. We're made up of humans, and there's things that are just inherently true.
Yeah. Do you try and stay optimistic for your kids? Do you? I guess as a dad, you have to, right?
Yeah. You kind of have no choice. Yeah. Otherwise, my bad parent. Yeah. I mean, I try to, for sure. And I'll be honest with you, it's hard for me as well. I can easily get wrapped up in the moment and the news, and just have such confusion about where things are.
Yeah.
Again, when I was 12 years old, living in Virginia Beach, there was a huge race riot that made national media, and it was really, really intense and really heavy at that time. There's an Arrested Development song called Revolution that was my favorite song back then. I went back and listened to it and was just like, oh my God, again, like this song could be played today. But those were racial tensions that have existed for 400 years in the United States. It's gone beyond that now.
Yeah.
It's gone sectarian.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, again, it's gone to another level of division. And where we had our issues when I was a kid, they've just gotten more divided, and other issues have just gotten worse. I grew up with this belief. You have to understand, my father was in the military, so in the Marine Corps and growing up on military bases, I grew up with people that looked all kinds of different things. They had different faiths and different backgrounds, and they believed different things. They spoke different languages in their homes, but we were a community. There was this understanding that, like, at the end of the day, like, we need each other, and we're going to strive towards being united. The idea of democracy, in terms of what the United States has lived, is a goal. It's a goal you continue to strive for, and that's where it's hard in the last several years. Is that the vision of that goal it feels like it's deteriorating. That we're no longer striving towards it.
Well, I say this all the time to people. I don't know if it was better, but it was certainly simpler before the internet and social media. And back then, when your dad grew up, when I grew up, when you grew up, there were things you didn't say in public. There was decency and decorum. You tried to have mutual respect for each other, even when you were arguing about politics around the table at Thanksgiving. Now, like I was telling you about my buddy in North Carolina, he says he can't talk to his parents. He can only talk to his parents about his kids, because they can't talk politics anymore, because everything turns into a flamethrower when you talk politics today, which is,
it's no longer a conversation.
Yeah, it really is. Do you celebrate, now that you're in Montreal, do you celebrate American Thanksgiving or Canadian Thanksgiving?
I celebrate both.
Will you celebrate both this year? I would imagine it'll be tough if you must have a lot of friends and relatives down in the States.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, essentially, like, Canadian Thanksgiving has kind of been canceled this year.
Just pretty much.
So I'm hoping that things are better. And I'm hoping that people take it seriously, and that the next month is effective in bringing the cases down, and that hopefully by the end of November, we can celebrate American Thanksgiving as well.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Jake, we've been talking for nearly an hour. I can't thank you enough for agreeing to do this. And thanks so much for breaking out the guitar. I absolutely adore talking to you. You're just one of the nicest men I've ever met, and one of the most talented people I've ever met. And I mean, it must be exciting to be on Bruce's new record, because it certainly is getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, well, it deserves it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, tip of the cap to that. And please let us know when the projects you're thinking about and probably writing down. Let us know when those are coming, because we'd love to hear them and love to help you with them.
I appreciate that so much. Yeah, thanks so much. It's always you, and
thank you, man.
Or my mother-in-law has been a huge fan since she was a teenager. So
make me feel like I'm 100.
10 years ago.
No, believe me, that, as you well know, that's a high compliment, and I appreciate that a lot. Please tell her thanks so much. I appreciate it. So stay safe, wear your mask, and I'll tell you now, I'll just wish you a happy Thanksgiving, a happy early Thanksgiving, and a million thank yous. Merci mille fois, as they say here, Jake.
Okay.
See you later. Okay, see you later, bud. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was great. Love that.